Well, when I think of critical listening, I think of it seems obvious, but critical listening, like listening to something to see if it can be improved or how things are done.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So when you listen to music, say you get Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, and you put your playlist on. So you're doing the homework, or so you do something on your computer, and you put your music on. You're not listening to that music to critique it. You're listening for pleasure, and you want
Yeah.
to enjoy that music. But when you listen to something you've made, and say it's a work in progress, critical listening is more about the technical details inside the track. So it's often misunderstood as the ability to hear everything simultaneously. You're not listening to it and going to say, right, this is wrong with the drums. I can hear I want to change this with the vocal, uh, this with the bass, etc., etc. You're not doing that with critical listening. When you listen critically, the thing you need to do is break the song down into layers. So hear one thing at a time is the golden rule, as you can see here. So that is, if you want to take anything away from today's session, it is when you listen to your own music and you want to find the issues with it, find things that need improvement, you don't listen to it as a whole. You listen to one part, you really focus in on that particular thing and see if there's any issues with it. And you basically go through the list. So you could start with vocals, and you listen to them, you think, no, the vocals sound all right. Then you can go to the next thing, drums. You could go, then bass. You go through each layer, and you write a couple notes, a couple things that you notice. And as you do this method, it's harder when you start, but once you kind of get in the flow of it, it becomes natural. And if it's something you do often, you you end up doing it just as a reflex. That's how I've um, developed my listening ears. I won't. Well, not for a song I'm listening to for pleasure, but say it's a mix down Monday. Your ears should go straight to a specific part of the track. So if you're a producer, for example, you could be judging frequency balance. So how much bass, how much mids, how much highs are in the song, stereo width, dynamics, how loud and how quiet certain parts are, the arrangement, does it flow? Uh, does it make sense how it flows? The energy, um, probably emotion in there as well. That's more of a personal preference. Um, yeah, like commercial quality will probably be another one. If you want to pick each of those parts and analyze them, you can't do that in one pass. It's too much. But this also doesn't imply that there's one issue with your track, but you've just got to listen to one thing at a time, temporarily listen to one layer at a time. So, question I want to ask people here is, when you know something is wrong with your own track, how often can you immediately explain exactly what it is?
In
You can
percentage or
you can type in the chat. You can say on the mic. It's up to you.
Uh,
Can you
for
pinpoint it, or
me,
can you?
I can't.
Any You can't pinpoint it. Is that what you're saying?
Mm,
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard because I don't know what to listen for because I haven't done it enough to know, hey, that's wrong. So I always have to send it to someone else for them to say, hey, that's wrong. And then I'm like, okay, I feel that, but I don't know how to fix it.
Right. So do you feel like you can hear something is wrong, but you just don't know how to pinpoint what that is? You don't know how to quite explain what the problem is, but you can hear
Yes.
something is wrong?
And even if I could like completely tell you what's wrong, I absolutely don't know how to fix it.
Okay. Well, that is the second half of this, which we are going to cover. Um, being able to hear what's wrong is one skill. Being able to fix it is an entirely different skill on its own. Um, Vin, I can see your chats, Vin. I was going to get to you. Vin, you said you can pick it up quite quickly. So when you say you can pick things up quickly, is that because you do a particular process regularly, so you know what to listen for? Do you pick up different things? Is it a similar thing most of the time? Um, okay, so with these kind of vague comments, you probably get these when you play your song to a friend, family. You know, you want a bit of feedback, and you get something vague.
Y'all get feedback?
Say again, sorry.
Sorry, it's not. Oh, a funny small joke.
Well, do you feel like you say these things about your own music?
I mean, I personally can often like tell when something's wrong, and like about half the time I know how to fix it.
Okay, so more often than not, when you listen to your own song, you think, right, this is the problem. You'll know what in particular is,
Yeah,
you know, missing, or you know, not quite right, and you think, okay, I know what it is, but then are you also saying, even though you know what the problem is, sometimes you think, "Wait, but how do I fix that?"
yeah. I always then like try a bunch of different things, and like it works half the time.
Well, that's what you have to do really with production. A lot of it is and what's this? Yeah, a lot of production is trial and error.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way.
But it's good though, being able to hear what the problem is actually the more difficult skill,
Uh,
because if you know what the problem is, at least you can, maybe if you have the budget, you could hire someone to do something, you know, say it's a mix problem. If you're able to tell a producer, mix engineer what the problem is, you know, they'll be able to fix it.
yeah,
So with these vague kind of reactions, they're actually very valid, um, like an emotional reaction, because they tell us the track deserves investigation, but they don't tell us what to change. So it's not hitting. To me, that could mean weak transients, say like a EDM, techno, trance, whatever. Could be a weak kick. It's not pumping enough. Maybe not enough contrast before and after the drop. Maybe the drop doesn't feel impactful enough. Uh, it's missing something. I've had this one many times. If I get this bit of feedback, I don't know what to do with this. But it could, for example, mean maybe that you need another layer in your song.
yeah,
Could also mean that one of the existing layers, you know, needs a bit more development, you know, a bit more movement. Something feels off. could be timing, tuning,
That's the one I have often the
emotional.
most problem with.
This one here, something feels off.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one I
because it's
often
hard.
struggle with.
Because what the music you're making. You know what the industry standard is, and you know how that should sound. But pinpointing the difficulties in your own song, it's extremely hard, especially if you've heard it many
Yeah.
times. But when you judge the full mix at once, your attention will naturally jump between elements, and you probably start solving multiple problems in your head at once, and that's a lot harder to do. So, in a nutshell, the problem isn't actually your ears, the things that you're hearing. It's just how you're listening to your song. And
Oh,
critical listening, I would categorize like, say, working out, going to the gym. If you have a gym session, say you do legs, say you do your upper body, you have a set that you're focusing on specific muscles. And once you do lots of um, sessions on those muscles, you train them and they start to develop. It's kind of similar with critical listening. Once you've targeted a specific problem and you've heard it many times, your ear will naturally just pick them up.
uh,
So the one thing rule is pretty simple. When you listen to a song, pick something in this range. These aren't the only things, but it's a lot easier to start with something here. So depends on your genre as well.
they feel very familiar.
Um, but does anyone have any kind of regular kind of issues with anything here? Does anything here normally kind of need you to come back on the songs? Like low end, for example, does that often need a lot of work?
Am I allowed to say all of the above?
Yeah, well, it's always the case. Is you can always make your mixes better.
Yeah.
But if there was one you could pick, you could say this one kind of gets me. What would you say? You could type in the
I
Probably
chat
can't
as
the
really
well.
see the
Remember?
list. I can't really see the list because I'm driving, but I know for me, I hear a lot, and I'm pretty sure it's because I'm not confident enough. My vocals are kind of like the same key register, like they don't have movement, if that makes any sense.
They feel a bit flat.
Uh, yeah, like they're flat, like they're kind of like you can tell that I'm shy. Like you can really tell that I'm shy when I sing. Like it's kind of like in that safe zone. It doesn't venture out, even if I want
Hmm.
to, it doesn't.
So would you say that's more about the performance, or are you thinking mix
Um,
wise?
Not mix wise because Light does my mixes and he tries to bring them out as much as possible. I think
Mm.
it's a lot of me not knowing what to do vocally. And I know tempo is an issue with me as well. Where when you say something feels off, tempo is an issue with me because the part of the song that I'm listening to might not necessarily be the tempo of the song. And then I start following along with that, then everything gets offbeat.
Okay. So for that kind of issue, what you probably need to do, just record a lot more songs. There's no way around it. Once
Mm.
you've done more music, you get more comfortable with your particular I want to say not safe space, but the uh, songs. If you pick, say, like Taylor Swift, for example, she's not going to do a drum and bass song and start rapping or whatever because that's not her. But she'll have a particular range where she's comfortable, she can sing, and she won't feel stressed or strained on her voice. And you can't really know that until you've made a certain amount of music. It's a journey you've got to take. So, Vin, you say vocal position, and most people kick and bass. Yeah, kick and bass is a very big one. Vocal position is, I personally, not me. I don't miss my voice. Personally, I
Well,
think vocal mixing is one of the hardest things to really, get right. It's so hard. It's so easy to have your vocal slightly too loud.
oh
Have your
yeah,
vocal slightly too quiet where
yeah.
you can't hear it. It's a very, very um, precise. Yeah, exactly, Vin. Yeah, it gets muddy. Okay.
For me, harshness of the vocals sometimes also struggle.
Harshness. Yeah. What do you record with, or do you get vocals from other places?
I record on my phone.
Well, that will be that'll be part of it, but with vocals and any recording, really, it's mostly about the what you get at first. If you record
Yeah,
with a $2,000 microphone, it's going to be easier to mix than, say, using your phone.
yeah,
But you can actually get decent vocals with cheaper equipment, depending on how you record it. So
for sure.
you could, if you had a recording booth that's made to record vocals, you'd be surprised at the quality you could get from a cheap microphone. So on your phone, even a dictaphone, you could get
Yeah.
decent vocals. Okay, so what do people think of? What are these words I've got on the screen? So when we're listening to a track and we're trying to narrow down the issues, do people find it hard to articulate, to specify what it is? Do you find it easier to pinpoint the layer that's causing you issues? Do you think, for example, I know it's the vocal, or I know it's the drums? Do you find that part you can do that? And then do you find, if that's something you can do, is it hard to then explain what the problem is to yourself first of all and to others? Because if you find it hard to explain what the issue is, what you should do is learn a set of keywords, pretty much. I think the last Mixdown Monday, Ray showed some um, sheets with a bunch of words, which we'll get to later. But when you're trying to describe problems in your track to other people, it's good to have a set um, a set term sheet. I don't know what you'd call it. So people know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if someone could pick something from this table, I could explain what it is if you're unsure.
Oh, yeah. What does masking mean in the clarity part?
Masking. So masking is when layers, two or more layers, are getting in the way of each other. They feel like they're fighting for the same space in the mix. So could be a vocal and a guitar or keys, something like that, where when they're both playing at the same time, you think, for example, oh, I can't quite hear the vocal when the guitar's playing, or something along those lines. It could be drums. Normally, drums, especially kick and bass, low end with electronic music, the bass can mask the transient of the kick. So when they're both playing, it doesn't have enough thump.
Ah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you listen to a song you've made and you think, I love the vocal sounds good, the intro, but then when I get to the chorus, I'm struggling to hear it. I'm having to focus in to hear the lyrics. That will most likely be masking. It will be something that's fighting the vocal, for that space. So what about, let's see, groove?
That's me.
Well, we all know if something has groove to it, it feels like it's danceable. But if something is lacking groove, how would you pick that up? It's fine to say you wouldn't know.
I would know but I wouldn't know how to fix it. That's the main problem. For me, at
To
least.
me, honestly, I just get feedback. So I ask them to listen to it and kind of give me like a reference of what they would do, and then I try to mix it in between.
Okay, well, we're not quite on fixing the problems yet, so you're ahead in your thinking. Just how would you notice it? I can see in the chat we've got a couple good answers. Accentuation, which if anyone is unfamiliar with that, would be in a drum loop or even in say a rhythm guitar, something like that. Certain notes being louder or more quieter than others. Ghost notes, if anyone's heard of them. If you're writing MIDI and every note has the same velocity and is snapped to the grid exactly, it's going to sound mechanical or stiff, like Ray's said. So to add groove, you add humanization. So you move notes just slightly, the tiniest bit off the grid. You change velocity of different different MIDI notes. So if you have a snare, it's not going to smack at maximum volume every time. So these are the things we listen for in a mix. So overall, and the thing I personally do is go from the first column, so foundation, and I work my way along. So when I listen to a lot of electronic music. So my personal method might not work for every genre, but for me, I listen to a song instantly. I'll think, okay, kick and bass, do they work? Does the vocal feel like it's part um, of the song? Does it feel like it's been laid over? Does it feel like it's too quiet? This is the foundation of a lot of modern music, is the kick, bass, and vocal.
Ist weg oder geht?
It's like
Yeah, we'll take submissions today. If people want to submit for later, do we want to post a link in the chat or announcements? Yeah. There we go. So if you want to submit a track that you've been working on, it has to be so it has to be a work in progress, and we're not looking for a vibe check in this. If you've got a specific issue, or if there's a track you've been working on and you think, I just don't quite know what the issue is, submit your track and we'll go through it and we'll see if people can find out on their own. I'll be listening as well, but it'll be a good practice to see if we can critically listen and pick apart different elements. But we're not gonna we're not here to roast people's tracks. So we can also, when you critically listen, it's not just about what's wrong, it's about what's working. Because one of the things you don't want to do, so this will be at the end. It'll be the last section. One of the things you don't want to do is change something that's working. So when you are critically listening, you're listening to different parts of your track. If there's something that really works, make a note of it. Because when you come back to a song, say after a day or two, you want to know, okay, this part I don't want to change. Because you can easily, I don't know how many times I've done it, but it's been a lot, where I've worked on a song for a while and I've changed something that was working, but because I heard it so many times, I changed it just because my brain wanted to hear something different. And I changed it and I regretted it. And I think, oh, why did I change that? So when you listen to your tracks, make sure you note down what is working for you, what your favorite parts are, because you can very easily unravel the best parts of your song. And then where do you go from there? So I'm going to ask the room, which category would you say is the hardest to judge? It doesn't have to be one part of each of these. So these columns here, so foundation, space, movement, clarity. So which part of this table here do you find it's hard to pinpoint? Yeah, space and clarity are hard. Space can be a difficult one, especially when you're making a song, it's new. You don't quite know where certain things are supposed to sit. Clarity is an interesting one because a lot of clarity you solve in the mixing stage. So when you're creating a song, it can be very tempting to mix as you go and make things sound nice, and you should do a certain amount of that, but oftentimes those clarity issues can be solved in the mix stage. See, I'm seeing a lot of space. Yeah. Does any term still feel vague for anyone before we move on? We're going to have some music in a second. Don't worry. Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, vocal mixing, especially if your song is has been created around a lead vocal. That vocal is the centerpiece, and it has to sound good. So I completely get what you're saying there with vocals. It can start and end track ideas. Yeah, I mean, I think especially when I first started working with vocals, they they get annoying, mixing them. Where I just give up. I just make another song, just do an instrumental. So we're going to get to how we tackle these problems. Okay. So this is a little warm up. I forget what I've put here for music wise, but guess we'll hear it together. So all I want you guys to do is think what sticks out to you when you first listen. Not necessarily just the first element. I put that there. That's all I expect. It's not showing me the. This is so finicky. Okay, well, I'm just going to play it from the start. So, what sticks out to you as soon as you hear it? It's going to be quite obvious. I think that was enough. I don't want to listen to that for too long. Let's go back. Okay, I'm liking the insight. So we've got flat muddiness, kicks are strong. Yep, I did produce this a while ago now. So there's a few issues with this clip here. It is cluttered. See, I like that, Bivo, the reference to another track. That's good insight. If you're able to connect dots like that, you'll be able to apply a lot of things to your own mixes. Yeah, so it's quite a basic intro, the kick and bass. Did we hear anything when the bass came in later on, like the more kind of melodic style? What was the difference? Did we listen to one layer when we were listening back? Did you feel like you automatically listened to the whole thing? Was there anything that instantly caught your attention? You think, oh, you know, that's standing out to me. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Eli, that's brilliant insight. My laptop is lagging so hard. So if people read what Eli's put, bear with me. All right. So yeah, so the bass drop that came in later on was overwhelming. You know, the bass synth just completely took over. And yeah, so the bass overshadowed the kick. What words could we use from here to describe that one? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Masking. Yep. Mud. Well, those are the two key elements I'd say were wrong with that one. The bass automation, yeah, that's a fair point. It didn't really move much, did it? It just kind of felt went from one section to another. Yes, Shreb. Glad you're here. All right, let's keep this going. Okay, so I'm going to play a song that I made a little while ago. It was a loop, and the point of the track was lots of things changing every so often. So I'm going to play it, and if people can have notes or somewhere, but something they can just put down things they notice. We're going to listen to the kick and bass only. Concentrate on that. Now, when I say first pass, once you've noticed enough, you can move on to the next kind of category. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. It's good if you do, but once you've picked up a couple notes, shall we say, on the first category, you can mentally move on to the second, third, etc. So for this one, the kick and bass, the bass especially, changes a lot as the song progresses. Everyone's got to suffer my lag. Now you know how it feels. I know. How about that for a waveform? Glad to see you here, Trev. So listen to the kick and bass for a bit, and then just make a couple notes. Just tell me what you notice. Thick old sausage waveform. Okay, this might be very loud. Yeah. Is that too loud? Just focus on the bass and kick. Okay, so I appreciate the feedback on that one. But did we listen to what the bass was doing? Could we describe the character of it? You know, the energy, how did it change throughout the song? Yeah, it was bassing. Bass was bassing. I like that, intimidating. So I'll play the first bit again, or play it from here or something. So something about this song is it changes, I think, every 8 or 16 bars, something like that. But the bass never repeats a pattern that is played before as it moves along, and it gets more complex, more intricate as the track plays. I think expect anyone to get that straight away, but see how much it changes here. And again, this is a different pattern. So I'm not going to play the whole thing again and again. We don't want to tire everyone out. Could it be argued the bass and kick are masking? Yeah. But what I wanted to show with this this example is when you're critically listening to something, you're not necessarily critiquing it. It's critical listening, but you're not always looking for flaws. I'm not saying what the people in the chat have said isn't valid, because I actually agree with a lot of what you've said. The bass does overwhelm the kick at points. It's very too active at some points. But when you're critically listening, don't get caught in the trap of thinking, I have to find a flaw, because you're actually going to get a lot of benefit just from being able to understand. Well, thanks. Hook works well. See, that's an example. You're going to get a lot of benefit just from being able to understand what individual layers are doing musically. So space-wise, the space did change, Vin. Yeah. Hook work. What did we think about the hook? Did we hear anything about when it came in? Did it feel like when the hook came, when you heard the hook, did it feel like it should be there? Did it? Yeah, exactly. Felt like a drop. When the hook played, did the energy change a lot? Did it feel like a natural change in energy? might be a different genre to what most people listen to. So yeah. So it felt natural. Can we understand why that is, or can anyone? Now this is completely open. There's no wrong answers necessarily, but to you, what made you feel like the hook was natural? Just flew in, yeah. That's a great point, Vin. Yeah. So, did it sound like there was an A and B kind of vibe where there'd be a section the bass was doing, as Vin said, the bass was bassing, and then the hook comes in afterwards, like an A B? Did anyone feel that? Kind of like a call and response type deal. Okay. So yeah, we have to remember as well that different genres, you've got to have different expectations for, different preferences as well. Yeah, I like that. I like that interpretation. Yeah, the lead felt like vocals, like a vocal hook. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we kind of got the gist of that one. So to summarize that song for me, so if I was critically listening, I would say it's very kick and bass heavy. You know, that's the the main focus of that song. So it's a focus on the low end with an active bass that changes throughout. And as I was listening, I kind of thought that hook that comes in every so often, it felt like it was interacting with the bass in a way. So the bass would do something in the section before, and then you'd hear the hook. Then the bass would do something in the next section. Hook would come in again. So when I would be listening to a song like that, I would think the bass is the main character, is the lead, and the hook is supporting it. But, and who said it? Bibbo pointed something out, which is when the bass was active, it did feel like there was a bit of masking, so it didn't feel like it had enough punch. And that is my song. I was about to say if it was my song, but listening to that, I think the bass is the focal point, so I don't want to change it too much. But I can change it in those moments where it was masking the kick. And we're going to get onto that, how to do change things in your song, how to approach these issues. But when you are critically listening, you don't just have to listen to what might be wrong. You can think to yourself, what is the song doing? What are the main elements of that song? And is anything getting in the way of it? Is it perhaps a bit too strong, even, which it was with that song? And from there, you can work out specifics, which we can do with this next example. So, do we feel comfortable with focusing on one element? Could we choose, say, for example, the bass? This doesn't have vocals, but that would be another one. I believe we're going to be comfortable enough now to compare and contrast two different versions of a track. So I apologize for the lack of variety of genre, which I'll try and work on that for the next clinics. But for this exercise, it's two versions of the same track. One was a work in progress much earlier on that I did. And then the other one, I worked on it a bit more. So for this, I'd like you to pick one element when you're listening to the track and focus on it. Just listen to how that element interacts with everything else. Is there, for example, masking? Is there mud? Is there enough clarity? And listen to that element specifically. And if you can write some notes, that'd be great. If you don't need to, if you could just keep them in your head, that's fine. But to work on critical listening, to train it, what you need to do is get familiar with describing elements of layers. And if you're able to listen to how a particular part of your track could be a lead vocal, for example, if you can really hone in on how that part of your song fits within the mix, you can actually hear potential issues you have with other layers, especially if the layer you're listening to is key. So I'm going to play these two. Ray's said something very, very, very crucial, actually. So people that aren't reading the chat, when you are producing, if you're making a song, you have to be able to hear things in context, but also soloed on their own. So say you add a reverb to a piano and you're listening to it, you have to disable the thing, the effects that you're putting on every so often so you can hear the difference. Something I actually feel like I have to do, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I have to bounce an MP3 of what I'm doing to actually hear it properly. For me, it sounds different when I've bounced a version of it. I don't know. Yeah, right. Glad it's not just me. Sometimes I also close my eyes or literally turn away from the screen and listen with my eyes closed. Who else listens on their phone or on a Bluetooth speaker? Yeah, Ray dropping the knowledge. I love it. How many people listen to their tracks on different systems when they're, trying to get a feel for the mix? Yes, it's an essential part. Just skip that. Okay. So, do we want the early version, or do we want the polished version first? This challenge. Like, that's a very comprehensive, very yeah, speaker, car, headphones, and earbuds. Also, try your smartphone speakers. Okay, right. So we've got a very resounding preference for early. So I'm going to play this, and once you've heard enough, just type skip in the chat. If you're still listening to it, type wait or something, just so I don't skip it quickly enough. But I don't imagine people want to listen to 2 minutes of this early whip because it's a bit could be a bit grating on the ears. So focus on one element. I would advise you to pick the bass line. The bass line on this works as the lead as well. You'll hear what I mean. And focus on that one part of the song and just listen to how the other elements interact with it. If you pick anything else up as well, write that down. Yeah, so vote if you want to skip. Once you've heard enough, you've got a couple notes, type in the chat and we'll move on to the next one. Okay, do you want to skip? One more vote and we'll skip. Right. So we can wait until we've heard the second version, but does anyone have any notes, any comments on what you just heard? Kat, I'm loving the lingo there. That's brilliant. Nice. I'm glad you like it because you're going to hear the better version in a sec. Yeah, exactly. The bass is just way too much, isn't it? It's just nothing else is really coming through. Everything else feels like it's taking a back seat. So when you say it's oversaturated, that's a great point because one sec. So yeah, so because it's heavily saturated, that bass, it's taking up a lot of room in the low mid frequencies, kind of a bit higher than bass normally would be sitting. And what that's doing is it's fighting with the percussion, kind of where you'd feel the weight of a snare, for example, because the bass, it's very loud, overwhelming. It's making the snare sound flat, I suppose. It's not publicly available, but maybe you'd like the next version because that one is. We'll see. Okay. So remember, we're focusing on the bass lead and trying to pick out how it's interacting with everything else. So, how did that one sound in comparison? Let's see. It is an entirely different song conceptually. first 20. Yes, so this song actually has an intro. This version. So yeah, Bibbo and Cap, I'm liking what you're saying. Cat, that's very spot on. So the clarity of the melody allowed you to hear it clearer, didn't it? Did we notice something? It'll be obvious once I say it, but there was a very, very big difference between these two versions. And our clue is bass and melody. The first one was very in your face. So yeah, it's very different emotionally. But the biggest difference is the lead was separated from the bass, the low end. The first version, the bass was doing both jobs. So it was playing the lead with the bass layer, with the bass synth. It was doing two things at once. And the second version, the melody was played by one synth, and the bass was a lot simpler. It was playing underneath. It was wider, it was fatter, etc., etc. All that stuff applies as well. But the first version, I'll play a little bit of it again, plays the melody. So it's doing both things at once. And this version, you hear the difference. The bass is doing something completely different to the lead. No, it doesn't feel like the same song. Go back again. Yeah, exactly. Remember, this is going to be a lot harder to pick out from my song. You're hearing it for the first time. You've got no creative involvement with it. When you're doing your own music, it'd be 10 times easier. And that's why it's kind of essential to practice on music that isn't yours, because what you're doing is you're hearing something for the first time. You don't know what's in the song, and you're giving yourself a challenge, basically. So with how the layer, or two layers in the second one, how they interacted, what would we say? Would we say the first version, would we say that interacted better or worse with the other layers, differently to the second version? First version felt more catchy. Yeah. So, Bibbo, you say the first version's catchier to you, which is fine. It's all about your personal preference with music. Would you say, technically, the first one felt rougher? Would you say it felt more like a work in progress? Kat's summarised pretty much what I did with this song. I really liked the energy of the first one. That's how I started it. But mix-wise, it was hard for me to balance it. So I ended up splitting the bass from the lead, having a lead track and the bass supporting it rather than the bass doing everything. And that was a stylistic choice, but also for me, it was a mixed choice as well. I was making it easier for myself because you could not easily, but you could, if you wanted, do a version of the first. Yeah, you could do a version of the first that sounds much clearer. So for that one, I listen to that and I say, okay, right, the bass needs to be quieter. The drums, the kick needs to punch more. I love that summary. Yeah, 2007 and 2017. Very much, very different eras. But that's what you can get when you listen to your song. I listened to this one, the first version, and I thought I like it, but something feels off. And to me, what was off was the bass. As much as I liked it, it was very hard for me to make it kind of sound balanced. And I ended up with this one, which is different stylistically, but that's what happens with music is you start at one place and you can end up somewhere totally different. Can we get a screenshot of this? I don't know. I'll get one later at least, but when you're doing a listening session, and I would advise to if you're really wanting to train your listening ear, is dedicate half an hour, however long you can do, fresh, without having made music that day, just for listening to your music. And during these sessions, you have to have a process. You have to know what you're doing. Just jumping in the deep end and thinking, right, I'm going to listen to this. Oh, nice, Vin. Nice. Okay, we've got one submission at least. So when you're listening, you can use this workflow. I would say this is what I do. If you have a process that you use, it becomes second nature. So focus. What am I listening for? That doesn't mean there's only one thing that you could be listening for. It just means in this moment, what am I focusing on? You have to define the element, the relationship, the quality that you're judging. So describe is the next stage. And with this, you have to state what you're actually hearing. And this is without suggesting a plugin or a fix. So once you can describe what you're hearing, you then compare. So if there's an A section or a B section, say there's a verse and chorus as an example, it's always a good idea to compare them, how that part, how that layer, so what you're describing in the step before, how it differs in different parts of the song. And it's also good to listen at different levels. I love to listen to my music loud, especially when I've solved an issue. I think, oh, that sounds brilliant. I just crank it up. I can't help it. But it's also great to listen to your music quieter. You can hear differences that you wouldn't normally pick up on. But once you've done these first three, that is when you start to problem solve, to think how is this happening? You know, what is the cause? You treat it as more of a hypothesis, more as a theory rather than fact at this stage. Yeah, see, Vin's got the right idea. Yeah, listening quieter, it's underrated. It's also hard, especially if you're really into the song that you're making. And once you've diagnosed, once you've worked out the issue, the hardest part is working out, does it matter enough to fix? Is this a big enough problem for me to go into my session and work on changing it? Because I can guarantee you, I know at least from my experience, I've spent hours changing such a tiny, small detail in the track that literally no one else is going to notice. And I spent hours doing it. And then when I listen back, I think, what did I actually change? I spent so much time on something that didn't really need changing. So when you are listening back to a track and you notice something, always have to weigh up the cost benefit. Does it matter enough for me to change? And that can change in different stages of your song. If you're listening to an early work in progress, an issue that you think, I'm not going to work on that yet, could develop into something that does need your attention. Okay, so this part is the submissions section. So how many submissions do we have? We have one from Vin and Beerbo as well. So we've got two. So this, remember, is music from your fellow jammers. So we're not going to go all Gordon Ramsay on it. This is all constructive. We're trying to work on our listening ears as a group. So how do I access these? Okay, I think I see them here. Bear with me just a moment. This this lag. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll get the chat on my phone. I think I can do it. Right, here we go. Right. See, I've got the chat on my phone. So can we get the submitter on VC? I'll go with, so we got Vin first. So the theme of today is critical listening. Now, with each of these submissions, we're going to listen through once at first. When I say first, second, third, final, this this is my first time doing a group listening, and I don't think we want to listen 4 times to a 3-minute song, especially for the person who submitted. But take these as steps. So I'll be doing this at the same time, and what I'd like people to do is write one bullet point for each of these. When you listen first, the first thing I want you to do, in your opinion, what's working in this track? What's the highlight? Once you've worked that out, you should focus on a particular layer of the track. And with that focus, you tell me, is there something you've noticed that needs changing? Is there something you really like about that particular layer? And really, I would say apply third and final pass. So I should really rewrite this, but basically you write what you think's working, and then after that, focus on one part of the song and tell me what the main issue is of that part and the possible next move. Now, possible next move is hard to do. I don't expect everyone to be able to do it. And if this is difficult for you, we're going to go over how we work out what to do. So don't worry if you can't do this bit, because we're going to practice. So I'm going to play the submission, and we'll do this. Okay, so if you can hear it, let me know.
Living in a dimming world, facing it alone with all my struggles. Don't wanna cause anyone more trouble. Everything hurts all over. Somehow you sense me suffering, and here you come with your horse galloping. You lift me up, prevent me from falling. I couldn't help but find it endearing. You can be my knight in shining armor. Do you swear to be my soul protector? Rescue me from this cold and cruel world. Live in my castle with me forever. I didn't know you had your own battles until you told me about all of your adventures. You came across my fallen kingdom and said that you wanna help me rebuild it. Question starts to flood my head. Who is this person that I just met? Why does he wanna help me? I cave in and tell him that you can be my knight in shining armor. Do you swear to be my soul protector? Rescue me from this cold and cruel world. Live in my castle with me forever. We can be in our own world together forever.
So what do we have for Vin feedback wise? I've muted it. Hang on, let me rewind it. My bad.
We can be in our own world together forever, forever. You can be my knight in shining armor. Do you swear to be my soul protector? Rescue me from this cold and cruel world. Live in my castle with me forever.
Vin, is this a instrumental with your vocals on? Right, okay. Feedback wise, that does change what we can say, because you don't have any ability to change anything apart from the vocal and the instrumental as a whole. So remember, we want to first say, in our opinion, what is working. What do we think is the highlight of this track? Brilliant. I'm loving the... This is great feedback. Well done, guys. Should I read out people's feedback? Would that be... Should I do that? Or... Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, Bibbo focused on the vocal layer. The lyrics sound good, but the parts with no background vocals sound off key. The chorus is really good though. The vocals don't feel that clear. Bibbo was writing whilst listening, which is hard skill. So that's initial impressions from Bibbo. Light is saying vocals are muddy, go kind of flat or monotone at times. The vocals don't sound very mixed or borderline raw, so it doesn't feel like it's clicking well with the instrumental. Okay, that's actionable feedback. If I had that kind of feedback as an artist, I would know what to do. One, I would like to say your voice is very beautiful and your story flow. Obviously, I don't know if it's mixed or not. However, your vocals need to be a little bit less muddy for clarity. Also, your spacing is good, but I felt like you didn't fill up your space enough with your atlas. You have such a beautiful voice. You can do so much in the background to add onto the colour of the song, into the emotion of the song. So we love the lyrics and background vocals. Okay, so this feedback is brilliant, guys. I'm loving it. My feedback, personally, I would say the lyrics and the performance of the vocal is great. You can feel the emotion, the story that you're trying to deliver with this track. The energy of the vocal really fits with the instrumental. You can tell that you've done this vocal over the instrumental as a pair. You haven't just thrown things together in a way. Now, I have to agree with everyone else and say the main issue you have with this song is the mixing of the vocal and the instrumental. So you can spend a long time mixing your vocal with the instrumental and trying to get the levels right. But you'll probably find it's quite difficult to get the levels right when you've just got an instrumental on one track and vocals on top. If you had the stems, if you say made or had the instrumental sent to you with the different layers, you have a lot more options when it comes to processing. You can make the vocal, when you hear a professional song, for example, the vocals sound like they're really embedded in the song. They sound like they're part of the same thing. And an issue you're going to have with using a backing track for your vocals is it's a lot harder to get them to sound unified, but it's not impossible. And the best next step for you for this song, I would say, is to look at space and clarity. So the vocal for me felt like it wasn't in the same space as the instrumental. And clarity wise, it needed a bit more on the mid highs, the high end. What I think people would say is the sparkle, the bit that makes it sound crispy, I guess. But clarity is quite an easy fix, and space is a little bit harder, but they're not the hardest issues to fix for a vocal. What you've done well is convey the energy, and the performance of the vocal is probably the one thing you can't fix in post. I'm not sure how you would do that. So the focusing on that element is really good from you. But if I were listening to this track, if it were mine, I would say the vocal performance, the lyrics, the energy is working really well. But what needs some adjusting is the EQ. So more clarity and probably a bit of taking out the mud, etc. We'll go into that in a second. And a bit of effects in the space, so reverbs, delays. Does that make sense? Right, okay, so I can't see any other tickets. No. Is this just my laptop not updating or what? So light, I've got a ticket here without something submitted. I see 3. How do I? Is it just in the suggested array that I access tickets? Is there somewhere else? I've got 538, 539 tickets category. Okay. JamWith top left. Show all channels. Aha. Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah, right. Light, yeah, I've got your submission now, I think, as well. Okay, bear with me. Oh, Bibbo's was first, my bad. I didn't see it earlier. Okay. So, Bibbo says something feels off. We don't know what it is. Let's see if we can find out. Just follow on screen. These are the steps. Focus on one thing, something that stands out to you. That's what the main issue is. See if you can find the main issue. This is your opinion. Remember, this is all it's all opinion based, I think. But don't forget to first tell everyone what you think's working this song. Okay, so we're going to play.
I'd usually say it's a regular day, but not today, 'cause it doesn't feel that way. Why doesn't it? Why doesn't it? I wanted to say it's a regular day, it's a regular day, or is it really today? Why can't it be just a regular day, so I don't have to say what's wrong with me?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
I'm trying to use the sound for it's lagging. I love the sounds on JamWith, by the way. They're so good. So you're free to get on the mic if you want. There's
Oh, I
no
can.
pressure
Oh,
to
okay.
do this.
I can. Okay. Yeah, I made that song on my phone.
So could you give us a bit of background on this song?
Okay, yeah, okay. So it was originally supposed to be track 5 of my album, but like it sounds completely off compared to every single song on there. Like mixing wise, it's just completely different to every other song, and like it's weird.
Something you can't quite pinpoint.
Yeah, it's just extremely different mixing wise. Like when all of my other songs from that album, which is why it didn't make it into the album.
Did this song, when you made it, did it come to you in a different way to the others?
I don't. Well, okay. Well, it was mainly because the harshness of the guitar MIDI. Because I used mostly MIDI for all of this on my phone. And well, it was mostly made to like sound good on my earbuds. That's like the main intention. That's
So what
I
did you
always
start
try to have it.
with,
I always
for
try to have it
example?
sound correct on my phone and my earbuds, and like
Hmm.
I don't know, something's happened and it just sounds it sounds good on earbuds, but like but it sounds out of place compared to the rest of my songs.
It's very hard to mix a song if you don't have a reliable source to listen to the track from.
Yeah.
So with your earbuds, would you say you know how a song should sound when you listen to other tracks?
Yeah, or at least the kind of sound I try to have on my like my music. Yeah, this is just entirely different mixing wise, and it's weird and throwing me off. It
Mix
feels
wise, I would say there's a couple things that need changing, and it's nothing too drastic. I think it's just levels. So I would say, I'm not sure. Is it a xylophone or a bell layer?
it's a sampled music box. That's the only sample used in the song. A music box.
You have that, and it sounds like what do you call them? Not harmonica.
Yeah, a Monica MIDI.
So you have kind of like two leads at once playing.
Well, the harmonica only comes in the I'd usually save as nothing. It only comes up at the chorus. The harmonica is
Hmm.
only like an extra flair for the chorus.
And would you say during the chorus, it's the the mix sounds even harder to pinpoint? There's more issues. Would you say
Yeah,
there's more
but
clashing?
it starts sounding weird with the music box and guitar. It's just weirdly mixed in general. Like everything feels too harsh, somewhat, but also good clear, but also a bit too clear, and it's weird.
To me, it sounds like everything wants to be in the front. Everything wants to be the main layer, and they're fighting each other a bit. And what you're getting as a result is the vocals. Personally, I felt like they were getting masked a bit, like the other layers were taking center stage more than the vocals were,
Yeah.
and that's an easy fix. All you have to do is move things up and down. It's not a hard fix, but the hard
It
part
is
is
a hard
knowing where to
fix.
put them. The hard part is knowing what level to make them. But the actual fix itself isn't difficult. All you have to do is move things
Yeah,
up
but
and down.
getting to that is hard. Wait.
Yeah,
I have
but if you
to.
had, for example, say your vocal had a lot of resonance, or bad, let's say the recording had some interfering reverbs or echoes from the actual recording, that's a lot harder to fix.
Yeah.
So with learning production, if you can pinpoint the issue, then you can start fixing it.
Yeah.
That's the lesson for today, is learning how to pinpoint what the stumbling blocks are, what needs work. And for this track, would you say melodically, it's, because to me it sounded very purposeful to be dissonant and edgy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that kind of music's hard to mix for me.
I mean, it's kind of like all my music is somewhat dissonant.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of my music, but like this one is especially just did not want to work. Like, that's actually the 15th revision in terms of mixing, actually.
Okay, right. Well, I like to hear that, though. You're not giving up on songs. You're going through a process, and you are trying different things, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I just haven't figured out, and like I tried a bunch of different things, and it just hasn't worked until now. And I had
What
trouble
you
just
could
pinpointing the
try
issue.
is muting one of the layers and listening to it. One of the layers you think isn't that you wouldn't mute your vocal, because you need your vocal, for example.
Yeah.
But bounce two different versions with two different layers muted and hear the difference.
Got it.
See if you think, because that song that you played to us is very complex with how the layers are interacting. And what I find in my production is oftentimes I'll have something in there that I don't actually need as much as it's playing.
Yeah,
So
I also know out of experience.
yeah, and it's all about trying new things. It's about experimentation with production, especially when you're trying to find your sound. But from my point of view, your best next move would be to a fresh set of ears, hear a different version of your track with one of those layers that you personally think you need the least, one of those layers muted, and just hear the difference and think to yourself, do I need everything that's playing? If it does sound like, no, that doesn't sound right, I need that layer, then you know it's mixing that you need to address, because you can actually often find doing less is more.
Yeah.
But I like the energy of that song. It feels very foreboding, I think is a word I'd use to describe it.
Yeah.
Very much like it's creeping up on you, like do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that song
Okay,
kind
let's
of just
retry it.
happened.
But I love that one. Let's just see what people said. Okay. Do you want me to read these out, or have you read chat already?
I mean, I already read chat, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, groove could be something to look up, but at this stage of the track, it's going to be quite hard to change that.
Yeah.
But these are things you can always look up for songs you do in the future.
Yeah, I already learned the groove already has improved in my newer songs.
So would you say songs that you've done after this have improved things that we've mentioned already?
Yeah, this the thing is, this song is like a weird outlier. That's the thing. This song is a weird outlier compared to the rest of my songs I did in the past, like, 4
Yeah.
months.
Well, with that, something I like to do is a bit of a cheat, is to put a effect on the master that makes it sound old, like a tape or cassette kind of effect.
Yeah.
I use OCS 45. That's my personal VST, but you can find so many of them that do the same thing, where what you're doing is you're making it sound like the track is playing from an old cassette tape or a vinyl, something like that. And
Yeah.
you can do that on your master if it's a song that's it sounds different to everything else in the album. That's the kind of thing you can do to get away with other things, is how I'd phrase it. I should have an example of that. Maybe I'll play that next clinic. But don't give up on songs entirely that are difficult. And this is for everyone. Give them time. Maybe a week is probably the best length of time. Any longer and you might lose the flow of it. But come back to songs with fresh ears, because you'd often find you're going to know what you need to change when you haven't been. As an example, how many times have you listened to a song that you've been making all day and you think, I don't know what to change. This is just
A lot.
my
A
ears
lot,
sound like jelly.
especially with songs where I'm trying to end an album.
Yeah, Laguna Ritchie has a good point there. Final to drums.
Ooh.
Okay. So are you happy with that feedback?
Definitely.
I love that one. That was a brilliant aura track.
It wasn't trying to, just accidentally ended up like that.
You don't try to have aura, it just happens.
It just accidentally happens.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you for the submission. I love listening to everyone's submissions. There's so many different, so much variety on this server. Okay, so Light, I think we've got yours next. If anyone else wants to submit as well, you can just using the usual ticket submission. Okay. So this one is from Light Feels and Kicks. This submission is a Latin Afro mix, and we're focusing on vocal mix and leveling. So this is great. So we already know what we're focusing on. So everyone focus on the vocals, the mix, how it sounds in the track, and tell us what you think. So playing this one now.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
That was a fun one. Amen break. Okay, so what have we got in the chat? So Bibbo says, immediately a watery vibe. I love the vocals though. I feel like they could be improved with a bit of reverb, maybe, and sometimes the brass feels like it's trying to steal the spotlight. But overall, I absolutely love this one. Damn, you got me hooked by the first second. It's a very catchy one, this one. To start off, you know I love her voice. The vibes are good vocally and instrumental. Yep. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I want to say high in on the vocals. I feel like her highs are bothering me. I don't know if it's how she recorded it, or maybe you cut too much off on her frequency, but it feels a little thin. I'm also on my trucker headset, so I could be wrong. Like the clarity's there, it just feels thin somewhere. That's from Kat. Vin says, there aren't many effects on the vocals yet. I know you liked. Is Vin correct? Because to me that sounded like... Oh, hang on. Yeah. To me, this sounded a bit over-processed in some ways, which is easy to do. I read like how the voices in the English listening test sounds like. I sound like the text to speech. So for this one, focusing on the vocal mix, I would say there's, well, let's go back to the slide. So clarity wise, I would say there's a bit of masking with the vocal, and specifically the vocal and brass sections. When the brass is playing its melody, when it's doing its thing, and the vocal is also playing, it to me sounds like they're competing for the same space. And in general, the vocal isn't present enough. From where I'm sitting and I'm listening on my Sennheisers, I think the vocal needs a bit more clarity in the higher end. It needs to sit in front of the other melodic layers a little bit more. It's such a slight change that I think it needs. It's basically there. But the main issue, which is what we're focusing on right now, is how the vocal is sitting space-wise in terms of how the vocal sounds in general in its own space, the vocal. Because for me, it doesn't quite sound like it's in the same space as the instrumental. It does. It's not completely different, but there is a bit more that could, I think, be done to make the vocal sound unified. with the instrumental. And to do that, I'm not sure what your chain is, but with vocals, what I like to do is send them to a bus with my other instruments and use that bus to glue them together. A bit of parallel compression with the vocals and the other instrument layers, and use that for the glue in the track. And with that processing, you can push the original vocal layer a bit more. You can make it a little bit louder, similar to how you would do with drums. But I think it sounds brilliant still. It's a great track. But I can tell the issue you're having because it is one step away from being nailed completely. Where you'd listen back and you think, right, that's done. It's so hard to get that final change. I love the energy of that track as well. I'd go to a bar, I'd hear this, and I'd want to order a cocktail of some sorts. Start mingling with everyone. In terms of what's working the most, it's very hard to choose between the groove of the track and the overall vibe and energy. I'd say the groove is spot on for me personally. Yeah, vibe check is always passed. Yeah, at the beach. Getting a tan, yeah. Like there isn't much you need to do to that. Maybe take a break from it, come back with fresh ears. Because I think you're at the point now where you just need to make such a slight change that if you're going to actually make that change, you need to hear it with fresh ears. If you've been listening to that track a lot recently, it's going to be very hard to be, what's the word? Neutral? No, that's not the word. But it's very hard to come at it correctly if you've been listening to the track for a while. Okay. So with critical listening, you need to follow a step-by-step process, at least when you're learning it and you want to train your ears. Once you know what you're listening for, do it how you want. But this is a step-by-step process I personally use. So I make sure when I hear a track, instantly I need to think, what do I like about it? What's working well? And doing that first prevents you from getting in a downward critical spiral where you're just picking your song apart. Can't tell you how many times I've done that. So you first think, what is working? What is this track doing well? Then you pick one of the layers. What am I listening to? What matters most afterwards? So is the layer you're focusing on the lead? Is it the part of the track that is the star? If it's not, it doesn't matter, but you have to think what matters most for that layer. So bass, the low end, the way it's EQ'd will matter a great deal more most of the time compared to the dynamics. In contrast to drums, where it literally is most of the time your dynamic range. Drums is all dynamics. So what matters most for the layer you're listening to? Vocals. What matters most for vocals? Clarity, space. Then, with that in hand, once you know the part you're listening to, once you know the key elements of it, you think, what might be happening? So a vocal, clarity matters most. The main issue doesn't have enough clarity. Why would that be happening? Why would you not have enough clarity on a vocal? Most of the time it will be your EQ. It could be masking. You could have something that's competing with your vocal. You have to work out why the issue's happening. And next slide, we're going to work out how you would approach these problems. What would you try first? What would you fix? And how would you know it's improved? Well, I think the easiest way to know how something's improved is the issue you were hearing is reduced or gone completely. So this is what I wanted to get to. So there's a lot of words here, and Ray has these sheets as images. I'm going to use these going forward as well for people. But when you're critiquing someone's song, so not necessarily your own, the hardest part is knowing what to say, how to say something, how to explain what you're hearing. I'm glad they were used on a Mixdown Monday. Do they make sense? So yeah, so if you're trying to explain, say you're an architect and you're building a house and there's one room that's too small or something like that, one of the walls, the length of it isn't right. If you are the architect and you're talking to the engineer or the builder and one of you uses imperial units and the other uses metric, you're not gonna convey things right. You're not speaking the same language. So having a shared vocabulary, if everyone used just these words, and that would be very hard to do, but if everyone in the world just used these words, imagine how easy it would be to get feedback. You would instantly know. But on the JamWith server, our little group, we can try to be specific. And I've found a lot of the time people have great input, but it's hard to explain things in a way that other people would understand, I suppose is a way to say it. So next slide, I'll explain a few of these. But before we move on, if there's any particular term that you'd like explained, let me know. Is there anything here that's feels vague? Don't really know what it means? It'd be a great test for me, actually. See if I can explain everyone. Flowing, that would be movement. Okay, so flowing would be movement wise, the track changes. So a flowing track would have different rhythmic energy in different parts of the song. It'd be different to groovy, because groovy, it could be groovy the whole way through. Exactly, yeah, like waves. So groovy would be a very rhythmic song you could dance to, you kind of feel yourself moving. Stiff would be the opposite. So it'd be very much beats on the grid, not very much rhythmic interest, maybe like a kick, clap, and hats. You know, that's it. Flowing would be a change between something that's groovy and something that's stiff. And static would be the opposite. It just stays the same throughout the whole thing. So it could be groovy, and that's good. But if it stays that way the whole way through the track, is that what you want? Does that lessen the impact of your song being groovy? If you have a moment where the rhythm dies down and say like a break section, and then it comes back, most times you'll find it feels more groovy. Static obviously would be different to flowing in the same way. As we're saying, it would stay the same. Rushed and hello. Rushed and dragging. Has everyone seen Whiplash? Are you rushing or are you dragging? Great film. So rushing would be the drums, the percussion is hitting too early in terms of being the timing. And dragging would be it's not that gift Ray sent. Dragging would be the opposite. So when you're expecting to feel the percussion hit, it's lagging behind a little bit. Any other terms that we'd like explained? Anything we feel like we could explain that we know? That'd be cool. So what would balanced mean? If someone said your song is balanced, what do you think that would mean? Exactly. Everyone's got that one. So how about cluttered? Okay, Kat, that's a question for me. What term do I use most with new artists? Yeah, Pius and Ray have got that one. See, and the difference between cluttered and masked is if something is described as masked, you're describing a specific part of the track, whether it's the kick and bass or uh, guitar and vocals. There's particular elements in the song that are getting in the way of each other, whereas cluttered is a more general description. It's masking in a more general sense. Okay, so Kat has a question. So yeah, so what term do I use most of new artists? I'll take one from each column. That might be good. So tone-wise, muddiness, I would think, is a common problem with people new to production. It's quite hard to nail that in when you're starting, but you can get the grips of it quite easily. And remember, each genre is different. So just because one song sounds a particular way doesn't mean yours has to sound that way. Space-wise, dry. I don't think people use enough spatial effects in their songs. It's hard to feel brave enough to put the effects on. But you get to a point where you put too much. Everyone does. And once you know how much too much is, you can dial it back a bit and you know where the sweet spot is. So impact, flat. I'd definitely say dynamics wise, one of the common features or the common hurdles for people when they're starting would be making your song have enough punch, having enough dynamic weight to it. Clarity, again, cluttered would be a common thing. It's very, very hard when you're starting to know the level of everything, where everything should be sitting. That's something you need to learn with experience. And movement wise, static. It's different for everyone, but movement wise, at least for me, I learnt to change things up, get things flowing between different sections a lot later. You should probably focus more on getting your track to sound groovy, getting the rhythm to sound nice. And then once you're comfortable with that, then you can start changing things up. But as a beginner, you should focus on removing muddiness in the low end, you should try adding more spatial effects. Don't be afraid. Listen to how your song sounds dynamically. Don't feel afraid to have more punch to your percussion. Clarity wise, this is something you just have to learn with experience. But to avoid things sounding cluttered or masked, you have to critically listen. You have to listen to your track and work out what's fighting, what things necessarily you might not need. And every track will sound better if it's more groovy. You don't want it to sound stiff most of the time. There's everything here. There's exceptions to every single rule. And again, we have screenshots of this slide and the slide before. Here's a few examples of these keywords, what they mean, and what you would first do to try and fix these problems. Yeah, arrangement is very difficult to work out, especially because I would say arrangement is one of the things you get with experience and knowing your sound, Pius. There's so many different ways to arrange the song, even in the same genre. Great example I would say is Skrillex. His songs are so incredibly simple, but there is finesse in the simplicity. Many of his tracks. He's someone that knows exactly what people want to hear. And to be able to make a track that sounds that good, that's that simple, is harder than having a complex track. So is there any element here that's still a bit vague for people? Do we kind of get where this is going? These are the kind of things you need to listen to when you're critiquing your song. So all those slides 11 and 12, we've got screenshots of, by the way. So in summary, when you're listening critically to your track, to someone else's track, you need to narrow your focus. Don't listen to the song as a whole. Don't just think, does the mix sound good? Listen for something specific. Once you can do that, you narrow down one part of the song, you can then go to the next part, the next, etc., etc. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. But if you want to know and learn how to pinpoint issues, you have to first learn how to narrow your focus. Okay, so I think this is the end. So this is more of a Q&A now. If people have any general questions, it doesn't have to be about critical listening, it could just be production stuff. But I've got a few questions here to start you guys off. You can type in the chat, you don't have to be on the mic, but if you want to speak, you're very welcome to.
Yeah, I got. I mean, this- I don't know if it's a question or like, but I realized like I spend like so much time on the track, and like for example, yesterday we played it on a big system, and I got another track we made, and we made it like way more quicker, and it sounded better because the other track like I didn't realize, but I don't know if it's right or not, but like the muddiness comes a lot from like the three first harmonics of the bass not being very balanced, like when you tweak it with
Hmm.
like EQ and you adjust it to taste, I realize it's sometimes can fix a lot of the mistakes. Not the mistakes, but a lot of the things you should remove that you usually don't really think a lot when you start. I don't know if that makes sense, but and like the the like 150, 200, at least for the genre we making, like is really important to sound good in the big system. I realize. I don't know if that's right or not.
So the song that you did more kind of is more inspired. You got an idea and you made it quicker, sounded better on the big system than the song you spent a lot more time mixing on.
Yeah, and like I like the song that I worked a lot, but I found that maybe I overcooked a bit, like about the low end. I was like, this, and this. Then I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Then I listened when my friend was mixing, and I compared to the other tracks, and I was like, what the fuck? Like I have way too much low end, not enough low mid, and the other track we made it quicker. I made the bass myself on Serum, but I didn't do what I done on the other tracks, and it sounded way better. It had more punch by having more low mid, and less low end, I would say.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I find, especially with genres like techno, house, very bass heavy genres, that there's a point where you do too much processing on a bass and it loses its weight to it. It feels like it thins out a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that describe it to you? Where the song you spent more time mixing, it lost the character that you liked about it originally.
Yeah. And
With
it's so important to have like a solid like low end for this genre. Like I was like, he was mixing for 2 hours, and I was listening every track how it sounded on big speakers, and then our track came, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm missing.
Yeah, with low end, I've personally found the less you do, especially in the early mixing stages, the better it will sound. You should have to focus on getting a great bass sound, a great kick that sound nice together without any processing, and
Yeah.
then you don't need to do much to it.
Yeah, now I don't do a lot. I just sometimes fix like these three first harmonics of the bass. Sometimes you have like the second one who is too loud, or the third one. You just like um, lower a little bit, and it make a big difference.
See, but
For
if
the
you're
like.
changing harmonics in the bass sound, uh, it's a very specific kind of process you're doing there, where you need to really be subtle with that kind of EQ. It
Yeah,
can it
it's
can
usually
sound
like.
great,
Yeah.
but if you do too much of processing in that way, you can lose the character.
Yeah, that's usually like maximum like 1 dB of
Mm.
reduction, some
But
little
you might have
tweaks like
actually
that.
found the song that you did more uh, quick. You did the song you did quickly, and it was more guided by inspiration. you probably picked a kick and bass that sounded better together initially without any processing compared to the other track.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I've found. I had a stage when I made my low end where I'd have 15 or so plugins on my chain doing tiny, small, little changes. And I did so much, I was thinking, what? It just doesn't sound right. And I got to a point where I realised you have to do less to it. You have to get a good sound initially, and when you do your mix and master, you get a lot more of the character that you think you need beforehand. But with that kind of issue you're facing with the low end punch, what kind of uh, reference do you have audio wise? Do you listen on monitors and headphones?
Since my room sounds like crap, I usually like do everything on headphones. Sometimes I will like put my monitors on and I will listen to other tracks than my track, you know. So I kinda get the how to say like if it sounds as shitty as the other tracks on my shitty room, you know, it should be kinda okay, you know. Yeah, and otherwise
Yeah.
I just go to my friend mixing, you know, and I listen to the other tracks and I compare on in a I would say like bigger systems, you know.
I suppose it's just a matter of making more tracks, worth finding out what techniques work for you.
Yeah.
If you compare a track you've made now to one of the first you made in the genre, how much better would you say it is?
It's way better, I would say.
In terms, every say it's better.
In terms of like mixing, the
Yeah,
like the sound
technical.
design, because I practice a lot of the sound design. It's not perfect yet, but I improved a lot by practicing sound design. You know. I spent countless hours on my fucking cell trying to do worthy
Well, you're doing the right
patches. You
things
know.
though.
It's the
It's
hard way, like you said the last time when we spoke, you know, but it's very satisfying when you can actually start to make patch who sound okay, you know.
exactly you're taking the road most people aren't brave enough to do, which is doing everything from scratch. And you're going to find it's a lot harder at this stage. But I think you'll find it interesting if you say in a year's time from now, you look at the tracks you've been making now compared to what you make in a year, and you compare them, you'll see so much difference. You'll think, what was I worrying about? And you're going to think, how did I think that track was a banger when what I'm making now is so much better than that?
Yeah.
It's all about your progress, and you shouldn't expect to master things straight away. But from what I've heard of your music, I think you do an amazing job.
I try, mate. I try.
So does anyone else, doesn't have to be one of these questions, if you've just got something in general before we wrap up. I could tell you what I struggle with. So in my tracks, something that I probably struggled with the most would be the kick bass relationship. So knowing how much, how loud to have the bass, how much side chain do I need to put in, how loud does the kick need to be? I had a stage where my songs had such a loud kick that it was it was masking everything. I listen back to them now and think, what was I doing? But you can have a bias on your tracks. There could be things you just completely miss. I think there's a track I put up recently where I didn't have a snare or clap on the upbeat, the 2 and the 4. Completely missed it. I had no idea. I'd listened to that track many, many times, and it just completely just went over my head. So there can be parts of your mixes that you just don't hear. So it's always good to get feedback from your peers, fellow producers. If there's people that you trust, their opinion, they're like gold.
Yeah, definitely feedback from experienced people can add a lot.
I think that's it. That's the end. If anyone else has any questions. No, I think we're good. Does anyone have ideas for the next track clinic? Do we have anything in particular we want to do?
What did you do today? Did you got a project? I'm really sorry, bro. I was so fucking busy these last days. I
No,
couldn't send.
Ray's recorded this, so you can just go on the YouTube channel and watch it back. But today we did critical listening, so listening to your tracks and knowing how to pinpoint issues.
Okay, interesting.
I think we could also do a track clinic in between the big topics where we have submissions and critique them like we did earlier as a session itself. That'd be easy to do. And we can have the slides. We had have these on the screen. Feedback. Okay, well, thank you everyone that's still here. It was great fun for me. And watch this space for the next clinic. We'll I don't know what we'll do. Application would be good, yeah. It was. I wanted to put it in this this clinic, but I thought it might be too much. That's a good idea, right? Like a spectrogram.